But it doesn't matter which ones we start with. Let's start with a CPC. It's in singles, so it's tricky to get it dressed correctly round. And we've got to work out which one of these connections we're going in. 3, 2, 1 and E. E would be for my incoming earthing conductor. And then I've got 1, 2 and 3. So here, we class this here, this 16 amp as circuit number 1. And this would be circuit number 2. So we work from our main switch. So counting circuits 1, 2 and so on as we work our way down. So we know if we're, say, installing the lighting circuit, which we're simulating here with these single cables, is that we're going to be in circuit number 2 for us. It could be in any way number within your consumer unit, and you need to match the way for the breaker against the main switch. So 1, 2 against all the other connections. So we're going to be using number 2 here. It's super important when you're in singles, because obviously in twin and CPC or twin and earth cables, the cables are all kept together in the grey outer sheathing or white outer sheathing. With singles, imagine disconnecting a circuit and there was 10 or 11 circuits in a consumer unit, and all of a sudden you've got to find which neutral, which line and which CPC relate to each other. So let's keep them ordered. And often people put numbers on these as well. So this would have a little number 2 on it. And these also would have number 2s on them. So you roll them on as ringlet connections as well, so people can see they're identified by number. I've done that in other videos as well, but we're just going to make our connections. We're going to try and make these as neat as we possibly can. It's not easy being in singles, so if I come, just going to loop it around so I've got a little bit extra. I want to cut it off about there. I'm going to strip these cables back, and then we're going to twist the ends together. So if I strip that one back, we can see we've exposed the strands of our class 2 conductor, and then we're going to need to twist these round. So make these super tight. Students often give up before they get them nice and tight. This is taking some time. And then I'm going to trim it back. And I'm going to just twist it again. And then I'm going to double that over. You can see the size of the termination. It's quite big, so I'm probably going to be comfortable with that as a doubling over length. So almost twice as long as the earth bar. Slightly less than half. And I'll fold it against my pliers. And then I'm going to bend that end over. And we've got a nice doubled over end. And then we're going to pop that into number 2. I like it to lay flat. So rather than being side on, I'm going to lay it flat so my screw comes down and penetrates on top of it. I'm only going to do this again loosely. So I'll back off number 2. Just going to do this loosely because we are going to return them to the required torque setting towards the end of the video. So I'm going to just tighten that one down just so it holds. And there we go. So that's in position. I'm just going to dress that as best I can out of the way. So there we go. So we've got a little bit of extra on it, and we'll just dress that round like that. It could be that you wanted to think, hang on, I wanted to bring it more this way. So I could have looped it round this way to shorten it across a bit. The choice is yours on how you want to dress it. I'll try and get it a little bit straighter. And there we go. Our CPC is connected to number 2. Our neutral connection is going to go into number 2 of the neutral. So again, it's how we're going to make that look reasonably neat. We're going to bring it round like so. It is tricky in singles. I proved last time I couldn't do it brilliantly. Do want to follow something like the similar pattern. You want to follow something like that, but then come straight out the other end. You want to come out like that. I don't know, it's however you fancy doing it in order to get it neat. I'm just going to straighten it out. I'm going to just bring it down slightly, and then I'm going to bring it into this corner. I'm going to bring it down to there. So I'm going to go for there roughly on my length. This time I'll strip it with pliers. Just bite into the PVC. You notice where my thumb goes, and I just pull away. So I'm just going to push it away from my thumb. So just gently bite around the PVC and then just push away. We've got rid of that. Haven't damaged any of the copper. If at any point you lose one of the strands, you'll need to strip it back. You need to cut it off and go again. We can't reduce the cross-sectional area at termination point. So twist it nice and tight. Trim it back, twist again, take that doubling over, take your time to make a nice neat connection. There we go. Neutral in, number 2 again. So I'm just going to back off number 2. I'm going to lay it flat. So it's laid flat so it gets into my termination like there. And then just gently screw it down at the minute before we torque it up to the required torque setting. So that's held into position. Again, like I said before, it is tricky to make these look super neat. I have only got 1 circuit, so I'm going to go with that as my connections. So I've got a little bit of extra at the top, and now it's my line connection now. Well, I could just drop it straight in the top, but if I make an error on terminating it, I can't shorten it. You can rewire it because it's in Conduit, which is handy, but we always like to leave a little bit extra at terminating point. Not going to use breaker number 1. I'm using breaker number 2 because this is how it's configured when I got it. You might find at college you've only got one breaker, in which case it goes in number 1, and it would be position number 1 for the neutral and 1 for the CPC. But as I've just added the extra breaker in position, we're going to be in number 2. So it's, how do we do this? I'm going to just probably try and dress it something like that. So we come down the side and we go in. We're going to double that one over. Again, just push away, and then we're going to twist these nice and tight. And once we've got them nice and tight, we're going to make a decision on how big the termination needs to be. If you're unsure, put it in singularly. So if we just get that one, I'll trim it back. If I now just drop it into position, I've got to back off my screw. I just back this screw off to open up my cage clamp at the back. So that's opening it up, and if I push it into position there, look how much copper we've got showing. Okay, so we go in. So that's how much copper. Is that roughly half? Is that half what's gone in? It pretty much is. And half showing. So in that case, if I double it over from there, we should find that it's the right depth of termination. So take it, fold it over, and I'm going to keep it flat again. So from that position, I want to keep it flat. So again, that's flat down. It's got a clamp in here. I'm going to go into that clamp. I'm looking down it, so I'm checking that I've got it opened up, and I have. So we can just see in there, if you just look around there, you can see that cage clamp is open. I'm just going to push my cable in. I'm going to keep it flat, and then I'm going to tighten it up. So I haven't missed that connection. I know it's tricky for you to see on the camera, but if you're working in a college setting, you'll know what I mean. So there we go. So I'm just going to dress this round a little bit, try and make it look a little bit better. As I always say, singles are tricky. So there we go. We've got those all connected up.